You are listening to the podcast To Be Single or Not to Be by Shanna Montana, a podcast where we talk about the single life, dating, and relationships so you can make a decision at the end of each episode to be single or not to be. All right, so today's topic is toxic masculinity and men's mommy and daddy issues. And I know some of you listeners may be thinking like, you all are women. Why are you going to talk about men? But we have to have these kinds of conversations because typically this is a podcast about relationships. And in relationships, most of us are dealing with other men or men are dealing with men. Whatever the case may be, men are involved. So it is necessary for us to have podcast episodes like this where we can educate each other. We can educate the world. You can share this information and you can know how to move and navigate in relationships because you are more equipped with this information. And for that reason, I definitely had to bring on some subject matter experts and some individuals who can add some value to the conversation because I definitely could not do this one by myself. So up first, we have Miss Liz with us.
Hey.
Next, we have Miss Cassanora.
Hey, y'all.
And lastly, we have a guest who's been on before, and Cassanora's been on before. We have Kyla.
Hello.
All right. So, Liz, before we do dive in, tell the people a little bit about what it is that you do that's so interesting, you know, the work that you do.
Okay. Well, I am a postdoctoral research fellow, and I study men's health, fatherhood, and collegiate health, specifically those of students at HBCUs. Mm-hmm. But right now, my focus is on fatherhood and men's health.
Fatherhood and men's health. I like it. And Cassanora, tell the people your specialty, your career field, so they'll know that we got some real educated sisters in here talking to them today.
So my master's is in marriage and family therapy. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and right now I work in student affairs, supporting students through all kinds of transitions and identity concerns, and a lot of that is with students and their gender identity and how that impacts just about every area of their life.
Perfect. So I wanted them to let you guys know the credentials so you don't just think that this is a podcast with a bunch of women just blindly speaking with our opinions, even though some opinions will be included, but just wanted to put that out there. So now that we've gotten that fun stuff out of the way, we're going to get right to it. So can someone define for the listeners and for myself, what is toxic masculinity? Because this is a word that honestly I was telling these ladies I had never heard the word until the end of 2018 when Amanda Seales, if you don't know who she is, she's on the show Insecure. On her podcast, she did a podcast episode on toxic masculinity. And I got an idea of what it was about, but they didn't really dive into the term. So, and I know after I heard the podcast, I started seeing the term more and I started hearing it more. And it's really just, it's almost become like a buzzword on Instagram. But I wanted us to dive into, you know, seriously, like, what is that? So the people will know.
Okay, let me start this way. Before defining or even discussing toxic masculinity, I believe the best way for us to discuss it is to have a reasonable understanding of how masculinity is defined and performed.
Okay.
It's masculinity, of course, it's not biological and it's not automatically determined. And there are lots of different ways to be a man, depending on your culture. Because there isn't one universal masculinity. Masculinity means different things to different people at different times. But since we're in the United States, there are many histories of masculinity. Like, for example, for black men, for African Americans, considering our beginnings in America were difficult.
Yeah.
Black men's masculinity was formed in resistance to that of white men.
That makes sense.
And often you will find them being what we define as hypermasculine, or overperforming those things that they deem masculine or define them as a man.
So when you say hypermasculine, what's that? Like just kind of doing a lot or doing the most?
Doing the most.
Okay.
Simply doing the most.
Okay.
But even in like piecing definitions, you need to consider race and ethnicity, your socioeconomic status or position, your sexual identity, and I've even found in my research where you live in the country and in the world
can determine your masculinity.
Determine how you define
masculinity
and how you perform masculinity, and even with your age.
Okay.
Like young men will do things that they deem masculine that an older man might not do.
Okay.
Like a young man, for example, like a young man being a man may be having a lot of women, going out, partying.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for an older man, it will be, I have good employment, I'm taking care of my family. So it's really dependent. It's not one thing.
Yeah.
It's really.
I like that. I mean, I had never thought about masculinity that way. I just figured, you're a man and you feel like you born a man, you're a man. You're masculine, that's that on that. I really did not know that information. So that was really enlightening to hear that.
Oh, we got more.
Yeah, so carry on. I want to hear this. I'm interested. Like, I'm all ears.
I like what you said about the regional thing, though, just because, like, being from Mississippi,
yeah,
if you're a man opens doors, he pays for dates, he does all of these things, and if you don't do those things,
yeah,
especially if you like contrast that with like biblical things, if you are a self-identified Christian, like, oh, a Christian man does this.
Yeah. All right, so Cassanora, I think that was a really great point that you just made in regards to the regions and how we look at masculinity, because we look at, if you are raised in the South, you expect for a man to open doors, say please and thank you, pull out your chair, things of that nature. Whereas if you have somebody that may be from the North, that's not something that they may typically do, depending on, where they're originally from. But they may not typically do that. And then we tend to look at them like they aren't being the quote unquote man that we need for them to be based on certain behaviors. But it is depending on, the area of the world that you come from. And I really just hadn't thought about that. But it's, I was gonna say, do you make an excuse for the man and say, because you're not from the South, you ain't gotta open my door for me?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, my door needs to be open either way.
Yeah. You are allowed to have whatever expectations that you would like in a relationship. However, you have to communicate those expectations.
Yep.
People are not going to
read your mind.
Yeah, people are not going to read your mind. And I think we do assume, at least for me, being from Mississippi, like I expect a man to open my door, to, pay for the first few dates, to pull out my chair, things like that. And if that doesn't happen, I can't lie and say, I'm not going to go and call my best friend and say, girl, let me tell you about this trash man that I was on this date with. And I recognize that I have a bias in that, because I'm like, I shouldn't have to tell you at 30 plus years old to do X, Y, Z thing.
That's the speech we all got.
But, maybe I need to be more informative. And then if I say, this is kind of what I expect from a gentleman caller, and he does not honor that, then my expectations have been expressed, they have not been met, and I can do south.
Yeah, make a different decision.
Yeah.
So what more you got on the masculinity?
Okay, so there's another term that will feed into toxic masculinity,
and what is that?
And that's hegemonic masculinity.
Okay.
And this term was actually coined in the 1980s.
Okay.
And this is the dominant notion or perspective of masculinity. So basically, it's the universally accepted definition of a quote unquote real man.
Okay.
So in the American context, I hate to say this, but in the American context, when people think, the general masses think, real man, you think white, heterosexual male who has some level of college education, who is a good employee or an employer, has children, those kinds of
Middle
things.
America.
Basically. That's how that's how it's defined.
Like textbook in the world. That's how the world uses it.
And able-bodied too, so like not envisioning any sort of like disabilities physically or cognitively or otherwise.
So how do we apply this? And like it's great information, is new to me, some of it, but it's like, how do you apply, or how do you use this to navigate through the dating world, or when you're experiencing men?
I don't think you need to run up on everything and say that's toxic masculinity.
Okay.
I mean, that just might be somebody just being a bad person.
Okay.
And I think what we really need to understand is that toxic masculinity is when we're defining masculinity, it's those things that are socially and culturally destructive.
Okay.
So misogyny, homophobia, tendencies to violence, the feeling the need to dominate.
Yeah.
Toxic masculinity is built on basically in opposition to and the dominance of women.
Yeah.
Dominating men or men that they deem weak or others, and also the stigmatization of homosexuality.
And how does it affect a man? Because all of those things are exactly what you said, and they are the destruction of themselves, people around them, a partner if you signed up to do life with them. So how does it affect them as they move through society with that mindset or with those behaviors?
Well, you have to understand that some of these behaviors are universally accepted when you think that. But this is the killer part. Even though men of all races operate with greater privilege and power, you'll see that the way that they act, these things described, men's life expectancy is shorter. Because some you can contribute that to some of this.
Okay.
And then also, even if they do live longer, their quality of life is not necessarily as good as that of a woman.
Okay. And it makes sense. It's toxic masculinity. So we talk about, universally accepted behaviors. Like, what are some of those things that you guys would say is like universally accepted?
One, I would say toxic masculinity can be internalized by men themselves and can be used towards other men, but men are not the only perpetrators of advancing the notion of toxic masculinity.
Okay.
It occurs across gender, so men, women, and people who do not conform to either of those binaries. So there are tons of women, just using that distinction, who are people who perpetuate this notion that, if you are not strong, or if you can't fight, or if you cry, then you're not a man.
And that's when we go to, I believe that there are levels in that it's like, just like there are levels
to
of
everything.
racism.
Yeah.
Like using that example, like you said, internalized. So there's the intrapersonal, like how that affects you, interpersonal. And then a lot of of course, look at these abortion laws. Then structurally. Yeah. Like Absolutely. How we have to move and function in our world. Yeah. So toxic masculinity in many ways is built into, it is built into our environment. Yeah. And then, you have to interact with these men. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, but there was this guy who followed a woman around the store, and then he followed her to her car. And then, it was just kind of like, it was you could feel that he felt entitled to her attention.
So did she know he was following her?
She knew it. She started recording. Okay. And, she was like, I'm recording this just in case. Right. Something happens. And see, typically men don't have to move like that. Yeah.
But is that the same? It's almost like the same energy when you are out and say if a man approaches you, he wants to get your number or talk to you, and then you don't give him what he wants. Then you might turn into a bitch. You might turn into a lot of things.
Please don't let him buy you a drink first.
Yeah, if you don't comply with what it is that they are doing. But why has society taught men to think that is how they have to behave, or have they been taught that in the home?
It's both. I think it's both. And it's reinforced in relationships. It's rewarded in society. Perfect example, the current resident of the White House. Okay. And then
that is the epitome of it.
Right. But it's across generations. It's across regions, and it's not even just the United States. Like, you'll go into Canada. And there are people who feel entitled to be in relationships. And when they're not, there's this entire movement of men who are angry because they are not the generally selected partner for women in Canada. Yeah, so it's not just in the United States. And this has been about dominance, power, and control for centuries. Yeah. And so it's just something that has been passed down for centuria, and no one has called it what it is, or the people who have called it for what it is have been dismissed, have been labeled as angry feminists, have been told that they are stepping out of their place, or that they want too much and they're not happy with what they have, and you become villainized for wanting equity and for wanting people to be treated equally and not be dominated or controlled,
or do what you should do, or just to be a kind person in some situations. And I see what you're saying as far as like how it is in society. And I definitely had not ever heard about that movement in Canada for men to be upset, because you didn't get chose, that's crazy. So how does it show up on the other side of the coin? We talk about in the home. Is it, somebody was neglected, something happened to them?
I mean, women reinforce some of these things. Like, and also, I left this part out, but, you don't necessarily allow men to show emotions.
Not at all.
Emotional restraint is a hallmark of quote unquote manhood.
Suppressing emotions or making you stress.
You got a little boy crying. Stop all that crying.
Stop that crying. What you crying for?
What you doing? Like, no, let the boy cry.
Let him
And I
cry.
think there's a crippling. I believe there's a crippling of emotional competency, like the ability, emotional literacy, and all of that.
Yeah.
In men.
It says that people are emotionally retarded. That's what Iyanla said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, beloved.
Yeah.
Beloved.
So with the crippling, is it up to men to try to break away from that myth? Or, no, actually, I want to go back to that. So in the home, like you said, you just gave a couple of examples that emotions have to be suppressed. Boys are told not to cry. They are told they have to be tough. You got to play football. You got to do this. You got to get dirty. Is it really... So is that instilling toxic masculinity in the kids by doing that? Is it really wrong? Because I think now sometimes we tend to say, you shouldn't tell a boy not to cry, but in some instances it might be okay to tell him not to cry. So with that balance of it, was that instilled into these men growing up because they were told not to cry? And I'm just using that example.
But not necessarily. I don't think it's. How do I say this? Go ahead.
All masculinity, or what you define as masculinity, or what defines your manhood, is not inherently toxic.
Okay.
And
so explain that. We say not inherently toxic. What does that mean?
Not inherently toxic. So, for example, if you were a football player, and that was something that was really special to you, and you want to have a connection with your son, and you want your son to play football, and you encourage him to do that, you can push a little boy to play football because, he need to toughen up, or he need to man up, or he needs to do XYZ. That could be toxic. Mm-hmm. But if you're like, I want to share this relationship with my son, or it helped me, develop friends, or, be a good team player, or it helped me get an education or whatever else, that is not necessarily inherently toxic.
Gotcha. And that's a great example, a great way to look at it. And I think I've had that conversation with people that I always say, I see sometimes people try to live vicariously through their kids. And I think that's when it comes in to be toxic in situations where maybe they wanted to go further in their football career than they did. So they're going to push their son to do it. Or they have a child that, they may be doing certain things. They want to go to college and major in one thing, but I know a situation where the child wanted to go to school for cosmetology, and I thought she would be great at that. But her mom was like, no, you're going to medical school. And because, and I know that's females, but like you said, it's all about, I guess, how you move, how you present it, how you apply it to the kid versus it's like the force or the choice. Mm-hmm. If it's forced, I feel like that's when it becomes, toxic. On the other side of the coin, it's not. So that makes perfect sense. What were you going to say?
No.
Okay. All right. So at that point, I want to say, is it up to men to try to break away from toxic masculinity, or can they not get away from it?
I mean, it's structural, so you can't get away from it, but there can be personal decisions. Okay. And when you say it's structural, do you mean like structural as far as masculinity is going to exist? Like it's going to be there? I know that. It's going to be, just like it's built into our society, so it's always going to be there. But like in all things, we have choices as to how we're going to act, right? How we're going to move, and how we're going to function. There, you can only, I firmly believe this, you can only blame your parents, your mama, your daddy, your auntie for so long.
So long.
Then there comes a point of personal responsibility, accountability. Mm-hmm. And you have to move from there. I agree. But I think it's difficult because sometimes in men who may be acting some of these things out, mm-hmm. You might not necessarily know it.
That's what I was gonna say. You have to.
Who might not know it? The man.
The man, because
they have to identify it.
If it's culturally sanctioned is okay, and then it's like, wait, this is wrong. But then oftentimes when they're finding things are wrong, you can apply it to a person.
Yeah.
And
like
so
that trigger is attached to a person.
Yeah, and so that can be a moment of like crisis or catastrophe.
Or clarity.
Because it's just like, but it can be that. But I think initially it's just like oh my God.
Yeah, it's going to be
I'm doing
negative.
what my daddy did.
Yeah.
Now you can either choose to
do something different,
do something different, or then continue to do what daddy did.
And it's like what we talked about on the last episode with generational curses. It's almost like sometimes the toxic masculinity is a part of a generational curse, because what you just said, if my grandfather did a certain thing, my dad did it to me, and now I'm about to have a child, am I going to say, well, even though I didn't like the way it made me feel or how it played out, I'm going to just do it because they did it? Or am I going to say, this is where the buck stops and we're going to make a different decision? And I think that at some point, in order for, I think, men to break away from it, and I know that not all of society will ever completely break away from it, but in some of the most unhealthy ways, I think men have to be able to take that step to do so. So tell me, is it, at this point, you said it's about being accountable, basically taking ownership. If a person is in a relationship, is it their partner's responsibility to some extent to try to help them with moving out of that, or was that their mom's job and you just got to deal with what you got?
Nobody is responsible for your growth and development.
Okay.
Now, I will say this. If you are in a committed relationship with a person and you make a decision to support them through their own enlightenment and empowerment, that's beautiful. But you are not, unless you are a parent, you don't have a responsibility to put things into someone to help them be a better human. Okay. Unless they are your child or children that are in your life that you feel some sort of responsibility to, like an aunt or a godparent or something like that.
Absolutely.
I wanted to say one other thing. So the more people that reject something, the more it becomes societally labeled as not right or unfair. Okay. So there are still racist and sexist people in this country. Right. But overwhelmingly, even if people do things that are racist and sexist, society will tell you racism is bad, sexism is bad. Yeah. So the more that people reject toxic masculinity and call it out, it'll be a slow moving train, but it will become a time where doing certain things will be considered not right. Because up until not too many decades ago, it was still legal to rape and or beat your wife. Mm-hmm. Until people were like, this is not okay. It doesn't matter what your relationship is to someone. You should not be allowed to violate them physically and be violent towards them. Right. So the more you reject that, the more people that will start to
kind of pay attention
and change their mindset. But to your original question, you have no responsibility to someone else to make them a more enlightened human being. However, you're noticing something in your relationship and you want to point that out to them, I think it's appropriate. Do that in a way that is appropriate for the context of your relationship with them.
Okay. I like that.
I like the key word that you said there was support, because I think sometimes as women, we can act as emotional mules.
Explain that and speak up.
Take on everybody's stuff.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So, like, and I mean, I'm guilty of it. In my last relationship, I didn't realize I was carrying his stuff and my stuff, and I was like, "Wait,
I wonder why you were so tired."
Right? I'm like,
why you so tired.
You gonna hurt your body.
I was like, "I'm not a pack animal. Like, I am not a mule. Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna carry your." Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, and I think the key word that Cassie said was support. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, emotional mules, don't be one. Yeah. Like, no.
I like that. Emotional mules, don't be one. Support to the capacity that you are able to. And if you cannot, then you might have to make a different decision, like we talked about.
Wish you well in future endeavors.
Yeah. And I think that's a great segue into, we're talking about, is it the woman's job? Was it the mom's job? Whose job was it? Even though these adults have their own ownership that is in place. But, women, we get a rap for having mommy issues or having daddy issues is what we get a rap for. Mm-hmm. And so, do men, do they have mommy/daddy issues? Either one. And, what do they look like? So people can identify them. So let's talk about that.
Woo Chile. Short answer is everyone can have issues with a parental relationship. Okay. people who identify as men can have issues with their fathers. They can have issues with their mothers.
Okay.
Same for folks who identify as women. Those can show up in so many ways with the person that you're dating. However, what I will say is always bear in mind that an issue that you see in a person is not necessarily because, oh, you a mama's boy, you got mama issues, and you need to grow up or man up. One, that's toxic masculinity right there. And two, it is not necessarily because of his relationship with his mother, although it might be. But it shows up in a bunch of different ways. For men, it can be this expectation that you take care of me. Or, well, you know, the women in my life who I've loved, who've been my mothers, my grandmothers, my aunts, they have allowed me to make XYZ mistakes. So I expect all women who say they love me to make XYZ mistakes, to allow me to make XYZ mistakes and forgive me and keep giving me chances. And women have certain issues too. What I don't think is talked about enough is the complex relationships that men have with their fathers.
Okay.
Whether that individual is present or not, this is just a total sidebar. I am not a fan of junioring young men.
What do you mean by that? Explain.
So, like, if your daddy's name is Freddie Lee Earl Mack
Junior,
then Freddie Lee Earl Mack, if he were my husband, would not get a junior.
Okay.
Because either you feel like I have to measure up to whatever this bar is that has been set by my father, or I got to be better than everything he ever was, because all I hear about from my mother or my grandmother or my sisters is how horrible he was and how much he hurt them.
Do you know LeBron said that? He wished he wouldn't have named one of his sons after him because...
My son was salty.
That you didn't?
He got his first name, but we changed that middle name. He need his own identity.
Yeah. And so how did he feel like, why did he have a problem with that?
He just felt like, you know, it was something that women are supposed to, like, submit to because it's the boy and it's the son.
And it's my boy.
Yeah, but he need his own identity.
Yeah.
So we didn't do that.
And I didn't even realize it. I thought that he had the same name.
They got a different middle name.
Yeah, so you had to switch
his own
up.
identity.
Yeah.
Yes,
And that makes perfect sense because, LeBron was like, because he is LeBron James. Now that my son, you know, and he is it looks like his son probably is going to be as great as basketball as him, but still, he has to live up to be LeBron James. He's like, he hates that he did that.
In a competitive sport like basketball, right? So if, you know, Lil LeBron becomes a professional athlete, he's already going to be compared with whoever the other playmakers are in that time frame.
Yeah.
And then, wait, let's go back and compare you to
30 years, your dad. So that's a toxic setup right there.
Potentially.
Some
men really love sharing a name with their father. He's a man that they admire. He's done all these wonderful things for him. And I'm not saying it is necessarily a negative thing.
Right.
However, whoever my husband is, if I ever get married, sir, my heels are dug in on this one. And as the person who will more than likely have to carry this individual, I'm pulling rank. We are not junioring our child.
Yeah.
Point blank and the period.
And I can respect it. I can completely respect it.
But there's I was gonna say Cedric the Entertainer gave the perfect joke. I don't know if y'all heard it. I don't know what sitcom it was on.
What did he say?
But he said, it's a good thing that Barack Obama didn't have a son. Because just imagine if he did. Like, he could never, like, walk into, like, Walgreens on the back of his house shoes at 2 o'clock in the morning looking for toothpaste. He's going to be like, Barack Obama, like, what is wrong? Like, he would never be able to measure up
to that.
Like, to be his father being the first African-American president. So,
look at their daughters, though. Like, I think it was Sasha who just went to prom, who was beautiful, by the way. And this lovely young man that she went with. And everybody already asking questions of where he from, what school he going to, what he going to do.
He could never
Barack ain't his dad.
Yeah.
Look at young man. He just trying to go to prom with a cute girl.
He thinks she cute.
Look, let's go, do the wall or whatever the kids is doing nowadays at the prom and take a couple of pics for the gram.
And go home. And call it a day. Yes.
There's a lot of conversations about women and issues that we have with our fathers, and men and issues that they have with their mothers and the dynamics of those relationships. But I don't think there's enough emphasis on the complex relationships that women have with our mothers and men have with their fathers. And I think that needs to happen. And if you're dating someone, if you're like committed to them, y'all need to talk about family stuff.
Yeah.
And don't just let it be, oh, you know, my family crazy. Okay, well, what specific kind of crazy is your
are y'all?
family? Because my family is this.
The diagnosis.
Yeah. This is my family is this crazy. So
because crazy is one thing, and I hate to use the word crazy, but people say crazy, and a lot of times they mean toxic.
Yeah.
Because not all crazy is diagnosable, and I don't think diagnoses are crazy for people who are out there. But sometimes people say crazy and they mean a diagnosis, and sometimes crazy and they mean toxic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like, oh my auntie and uncle, they get drunk and they start fighting all the time. I mean, I'm sure there's probably something they got going on mental health wise, but that is violence.
Yeah,
that's a toxic relationship.
Absolutely. Or you hear about couples like they've been together for 20 years, and he's been beating her for 18 of them, and it's like, well, that's just what they do. That's not okay.
That's how they, that's just who they are.
Somewhere.
It stems from somewhere. And I think that you're right. You have to dig into it. And again, I'm going to refer back to the last episode. We talked about it with generational curses and boundaries, and be making sure that you are healed before you enter a partnership, but also to talk about those kinds of things, because you have to find out, how is your relationship with your mom and dad? And I'm going to go to another beloved from Iyanla. She said it's a difference if you say, maybe the person doesn't have the best relationship with his mom. But he's like, I love my mom. I respect her. We just, we only communicate maybe once a month because of XYZ. Versus, I don't really fuck with my mama like that. What? This is the woman who birthed you. And you think it's okay to feel that way. So it's like, if you can feel that way about your mother, mind you, I don't know the circumstances of what that situation was, but how do I think at the end of the day you might end up treating me? I'm really a stranger at this point.
They say you watch a man how he treat his mama, that's how he gonna treat you.
And I definitely think there's some truth to that.
I will say, I think there's some truth to that. However, I think it assumes that there is some level of health in that relationship. Now, granted, there's a lot of feelings of potential bitterness and anger and hurt that come out if a man were to say, I don't fuck with that bitch, and you talking about your mama.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you say, my mother and I don't have a relationship, we haven't spoken in a very long time, and it's just what's best for us.
Right.
Because I have no idea what your mother was to you.
Yep.
She could have been a wonderful, nurturing, amazing woman, or she could have been abusive, emotionally.
Or a criminal minds, the unsub, She could have been.
Some of them folks got cheering.
You don't
somebody mama out there.
You don't know.
If she is an unsub, what I will say, all of you, verily, verily, I say unto you, go to therapy.
If that is the case.
And that is the case.
Not a laughing matter, but I think you are, absolutely right in that. And what were you going to say? As far as what we were saying, you were shaking your head, and we mentioned about how how a man treats his mother is how he's going to treat you.
I shake my head and I say no to that.
Why?
Only because of personal experience.
Speak to that if you can you speak to that?
Me.
Yes. If you can.
I dated someone. I knew his family. I knew his family well. His family and my family were like tight, like 10 toes in one sock.
Okay.
So.
Ooh, that's tight. That's tight.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I knew that his mother, his parents, he had great, amazing parents. Like, if I were to request another set of parents, it would have been those people. And his relationship with his mother was beautiful. But his relationship with me was trash, simply. So that's why I say and then even, because, family, tight like 10 toes on one side. They tell, oh, well, so-and-so was doing this. And so,
and they're telling you this stuff.
Shared. So, business is shared. And he has continued this. And I'm just kind of like, oh. But none of his other, I know you can be raised by the same people in the same house and be totally different people. You don't see these actions in any of his other siblings.
So why do you think, I'm not going to say why do you think he's different, but why do you think if he was able to have a loving relationship with his mom and nurturing and all that good stuff, but when it comes to a relationship, he's trash? What do you think the disconnect or the correlation, or what is that?
Initially I was thinking, mommy issues. Because, it's like, if you're not like my mama, you're not. But no, that's not it. I just...
Or you can speak from a general place. Why do you think sometimes that happens?
I'm going to say, because sometimes people have their own...
Agenda?
agenda. Sometimes people just have their own demons that they need to deal with.
Okay.
And in not dealing with that, the person that's closest to them catches the brunt of that.
Okay.
Emotional muling, yet in a different way.
Okay.
So I think for me,
yeah,
my experience.
Yeah. Come on, emphasis.
Yeah. But yeah, like that. So that's why I'm just kind of like, eh. But then, you know, I've known, like, example, my sister's husband, his mother is the picture of toxicity. But he is the greatest husband, and he is an amazing father.
See, like the polar opposite.
Yes.
He made a different decision.
Yeah.
He broke that curse.
He said, I need to be accountable and responsible for my own self. So I'm going to do what I got to do.
And that's what he did.
And another thing I'd add to that is hurt people hurt people.
This is true.
So a person can be in a, you know, quality relationship, and I'm using air quotes, y'all, with a parent and have been hurt in a romantic relationship, because people are four walls. Like, the way you see one parent is completely different for a lot of folks. This is the way you see another, and siblings, and vice versa. You can have pain from a previous romantic relationship that you've not healed from, and all of these things that I'm doing that may be red flags for you that you've not communicated to me are coming up. So you're treating me the way you wish you had responded to a previous partner, because of what you're seeing in me that makes you think of this other person, and I have no knowledge of these things. This is not the clinical, soon-to-be Dr. Cass statement that I'm about to make.
Okay.
This is the Cassanora having had relationships as an adult statement. I have found for me and myself and that some of the young men had chips on their shoulders from childhood hurts.
Okay.
So little Susie from the 5th grade that you thought was cute, who might have been out of your weight class, homie, who rejected you, and now, this is a whole other conversation. Black women, I don't date black women because they wasn't checking for me.
Yeah.
Was it no black women were checking for you, or were you like a regular Joe Schmo like the rest of us in high school, and you trying to date the captain of the cheerleading squad?
Right.
Like
the ones you wanted wasn't checking for you.
Right. So, and it makes me think of Laura and Steve and Myra.
Oh,
right.
Urkel. Okay.
Steve was obsessed, and unhealthily so.
I want a man like Steve.
Nah, girl, you don't. That Negro get on your last nerve, and my
I'm
nerve
joking.
Too. But he wanted Laura. Laura told him she did not want him for years.
Yeah.
Oh, you there?
But she kept letting him come over.
I mean, it
was a lot of toxic stuff going on.
He lived next door, and them folks ain't lock their doors. Also, lock your doors, people.
Yeah.
But he continued to pursue her even after a woman who I also think, because Myra was beautiful and smart, who was out of his weight class, was like, oh no, I think you're wonderful. You got an amazing woman right here who thinks you are her moon and stars, and you got her competing with a girl that don't want you.
Yeah. So then you probably are going to have some kind of upset or some kind of trigger or issue with black women or tall women or short or whoever, because you were making the wrong decision.
And so my brothers who listen to this, and I say this from the heart, and I love y'all, even if I don't like y'all sometimes, I love y'all. There's this sweeping statement of, oh, you generalize it, it's not all men. But somehow it gets to be all black women, or all y'all independent women, or all y'all women who went to college.
Yeah.
Bro, just deal with the person you got in front of you.
Even like this, a hit dog will holler. If it doesn't apply to you, then you ain't gonna say nothing.
What does that mean?
I mean, it's just like, you saying all men. Well, if it doesn't hit you, if I'm not stepping on your pinky toe, you're not.
It's
gonna
nothing for you to say.
Also
They won't, and they won't.
So clearly something that was said
made you feel away.
Yeah.
Because likely you feel under that umbrella of those men that we were talking about, or you making that wrong choice on that mate, and then you feel some kind of way. So that poses the question. When it comes to men who are, I would say, they have toxic masculinity and it's part of who they are, and it's not in a good way. I don't see how it could be. Are those men most times narcissists or emotionally unavailable, do y'all think?
Not always.
Not always. No.
It shows up in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because people think toxic and they think automatically physically oppressive or violent.
Yeah.
Not always. It can be emotional manipulation. It can be, stalking. It can be gaslighting. Oh, I'm here today, gone tomorrow. It shows up in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
True.
And so if there are patterns in your relationship, because nobody is perfect, and we all sometimes say or do dumb stuff or hurtful stuff unintentionally. But if you notice a pattern of behavior that makes you feel ill at ease, like, dang, every time we get into an argument, he can't never just walk away, or she can't never just leave the room. I always gotta be stupid, or I don't know why I waste my time with you, or, oh, okay, fine, I'm gonna just leave, and it's a breakup every time you have a disagreement. Pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So not saying that it can't show up in very visible, volatile ways, but not always.
Yeah. I agree with that. So should you, in those situations, say if it does show up like you just said, should you leave? Can you sustain those relationships?
If you get help.
Get help. When you say get help.
I think that's a personal decision.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why I'm like, I was like,
that's real personal. Like, for me, myself and when I was in that, I politely told him and referred him I gave him a list of black male counselors in his city and said, God bless.
Yeah. So you like,
it's above me now.
Yeah.
like it was just like, okay, I got back to my apartment. I was like, get your shit.
Yeah.
You got to go. So I think that's personal.
It's a personal decision.
Because I was reading a story about a man who was talking about how he was verbally and physically abusive. And, because he basically was acting like his father, the person he vowed not to be. And he stated that he was verbally and physically abusive to his wife, but she chose to stay and support him through his therapy process. Okay. So I guess it's a personal decision. It's a very personal decision. Okay. So, I think I believe that's one of those things that's like a case-by-case basis.
Have to look at it that way. What do you think?
What I will say is an abusive environment, chuck the mightiest, quickest deuce possible. And you can say that's from a clinical perspective, or you can say that's from a just personal perspective. If it's abusive, get out. Point blank and period. Because people who are, especially physical abuse, and abuse is not just physical, but especially physical abuse, there are so many things going on internally with a person who feels like you need to be their punching bag, that you have to get away from them for your own safety. Absolutely. So safety first. What I will say is, if you decide to tell a person, hey, when we get into an argument or when you have a bad day at work, this is what you say, and this is how I feel when you say that, and I don't want that to happen in our relationship, and you make a couple of good faith efforts to continue having that conversation with this person, and they either A, don't do it, or they do it just long enough for you to stop, air quote, complaining, and then they go back, I don't see how the relationship is going to change. Yeah. Now, to stay in a relationship is your choice always. How the end ever, and this is just me as Cassanora, if you were my homie, and that's man or woman, and you tell me for the last year I've been talking to Tony or Tasha about their behavior and they have not changed, and this is how it's impacting me, because it will impact your mental health. You can't stay in a toxic, unhealthy environment and remain healthy. It doesn't work like that. Right. I'm going to tell you to leave. And that's straight up. That's real. Now, as a clinician, if you were a couple coming to me for services, the conversation may be different. But if you just on some, hey sis, let's go, grab a drink and talk, and you tell me for the last 18 months, this is what you've been dealing with, so when we packing your stuff, I can probably take some PTO on Monday, and we can make it happen. Yeah. And that's just me being real with you. Yeah. I can respect it. And you said you think that...
I said if... Okay. They go to counseling, but it is a personal decision. But this makes me think of the athlete that got into some type of media dispute on the elevator, and he punched
Ray Rice.
Yeah. He
punched his girlfriend.
Still together, yeah. They did an interview. So, and speaking from my personal experience, I dated a psycho. Like, he was my Prince Charming. He had mama issues. He was controlling. He was passive aggressive. That we had a lot of issues in our relationships, and I guess I knew better since I'm on the clinical side of knowing, you know, what's better. But I told him, you know, if we continue this, how about we do counseling? Or how about you do individual counseling and work on some things for you, and I'll do the same. He didn't want to do that. So
what was his response? He just like, I don't need it? Or
he felt like he didn't need counseling. You know, like, what are my issues? And it always flopped to, you know, what are your issues? What are you going to work on? And I've never been perfect, and I wasn't perfect in that relationship. But, like, make a long story short, we didn't make it. However, and we didn't make it, clearly. But I talked to him not too long ago, just like on some random, like, hey, how you doing? And he's in counseling now. Which is just a huge aha moment for me, because I would have never thought that he would, you know, accept it, or, you know, or so
who knows what happened in his life for him to make that decision.
And he's a really, really good guy, and I think I held on with that hope, but you can't change a person. Right. You can't hold on to hope to, you know, do something that you know, they have to be there to do it. But, you know, to each his own. I guess it depends on the situation and, you know, how bad a person wants it, or how connected the relationship is, or how people want the, you know, relationship to prosper.
Absolutely.
And I'll share one other thing. And this is from a spiritual perspective. And so if you are not a spiritual person, that is totally fine. What I have found is that people that we are not meant to be with, who cannot be a part of what is planned for us by our higher power. And I know people are like, oh, I don't believe in soulmates, or I don't believe in the one, and this ain't what this is. But there are some people who align with the plan that is mapped out for your life, and there are some people who do not. My childhood sweetheart loved that boy in a way that was not healthy.
Dirty draws.
Maybe not that much. But I would love his sweaty self. Like, he'd come in from the basketball court and be like, I still love you, boo, give me a hug. I wanted us to go to therapy. I wanted us to do all of the things. And we were not supposed to be together. And so none of the things that I thought would be better for us were gonna happen, because God saw that this person and what he had envisioned for me were not
your assignment.
It wasn't on my assignment. It wasn't in the plan he had for me. And I truly believe sometimes, no matter how hard we fight for things, if it's not going to work, God won't allow any of the good that could potentially transform that relationship to happen, because it ain't meant to happen. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to share something with you, because I think a lot of times we as clinicians feel like, oh, I should have known. I got a clinical background. I got this many degrees. I got 17 letters behind my name. I should know. Everybody, it's so much easier to see things from other people. It's so much easier to be objective. If somebody you don't know comes to you with an issue from a non-emotional, very rational place, you can see what's going on with them. But when you in it, it's real hard to see the forest for the trees. So relieve yourself, please, from this. Oh, I should have known better. No, girl, we all get caught up.
And I've grown since then. And I knew then, because, you know, just being in a situation. But speaking on a spiritual note, in this sidebar, but I had a dream, and this scared the hell out of me. But I had a dream. I was laying on the couch. I was in like a gray jogging suit, and he was standing at a door, and I could see like the light outside of the door.
The guy that's in therapy?
Yes. And I don't know if you remember him. Do you ever remember me talking about him? He was crazy as hell. But it was almost like he was holding me hostage, and he would not let me go. Mm-hmm. So
you had a dream while y'all was together?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And that was like the straw for me. I feel like God was telling me, look, this ain't gonna end the way you want it to end. You gonna be on CNN, because he had PTSD. He had mama issues. Like, he had a list of he was really chocolate, but I love chocolate man. My husband's chocolate. Yeah. But he grew up with, you know, just issues, inner issues. He felt like his sister was light-skinned. His mom treated his sister, you know, differently. And, you know, we would go out. He would be like Gucci down from the rim of his head to the shoes. And he would get like no attention. But I could be in like a Walmart shirt. You know, I know how to put it together. Yeah. And he'd be like, ooh, I like that shirt. And I'd be like, girl, Walmart, the smiley face roll back. Yeah. And he would be like disappointed, because I feel like he put all of this energy and money into having this appearance, and nobody noticed him.
It didn't work in his favor.
He was a really, really great guy until today. I think if he's in counseling, and if God is working to move him through some of his barriers or just self-issues, he's going to be an okay husband for somebody. Yeah. But until he's ready to move those walls and be like, it's good luck for him.
I think it's really interesting to see how men act and behave with anybody, men or women, in their everyday interactions when they have feelings of inadequacy.
And that's clearly what he had.
That's what
Everybody was out to get us. I remember one time we went to Six Flags and we ordered some nachos, and the nachos was a little runny. And I was so fucking, and then people knew we was together because we had on the same outfit. This is back in the day when you dressed alike when you went to Six Flags. He took the nachos back, and the lady was like, well, that's just how the cheese is. He was like, oh, that's just how the cheese is. Where the manager at? Because clearly you not the manager. And so, like, she was like, no, I am the manager. He was like, oh, you are not your manager. Like, everybody was looking, and it was so degrading to her, to, like, everybody around. And I was like, why did you have to handle it like that?
Yeah.
So, he always tried to defend his action.
Of course.
And it was always someone else's fault. Or, like, another example, we was at a hotel, and we pulled up valet, we was getting on the elevator, and the man had our bags, and I was like, Najim, I was like, you gonna give him a tip? He was like, he got me superstar, calm down, chill out, I got this. And I was like, well, I'm just asking. And then he got like all battle with me. Then we got in the room. I felt like I was hemmed up.
Yeah.
And he was going off on me about just asking him about the tip. And it just blew up. He was like, just let me be. And I was like, okay.
His levels
Just
of
let me
inadequacy.
be.
Yes.
His feelings of inadequacy were enormous.
But when we had fun, we had fun.
But with people like that, you can have fun. A lot of people you can have fun with.
No, we kicked it.
But I'm saying,
his mind,
you can do that. But when the curtains close and the lights fade,
all
who
of
you
that.
still here with?
And then his mama, like, she was bitches and all type of stuff.
Yeah,
so it was intense.
What we talk about?
So this is the thing. I think every relationship should have a baseline. Every relationship has highs and every relationship has lows.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if your relationship is only highs and lows, then
No
that
in
might not be
between.
the relationship for you. Because you gotta have some times where, you know what, maybe we ain't all up on each other and we ain't totally in love. We in a decent
good place.
In a decent place.
That's how it is now. But it took time for me to mature in my thought process, even knowing how to help everybody else's situation. But we all see it. Like, if we from, this aspect of things, we see the social workers, they come in, don't comb their hair, wearing gray, black colors, looking like and it's some people that when they go out, if they case managers, social workers, or counselors, they just got this like, she a social worker look. So they can help everybody else, but
don't help themselves.
Mm-hmm. So I think, we all kind of, well, not all, there's a large population of people who are in the helping, field, and we have our own issues. And
I've heard that they say therapists should have therapists.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
But also, helping people is a beautiful thing and it's necessary. But there can come times in your career where you're so focused on helping other people because, one, you don't feel like you have any sort of identity or joy outside of your job, or because helping other folks allows you to not focus on your own areas of where you can grow and develop.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing. The other thing I will say is that go to therapy. I don't know who you are. I don't know how many people you've dated. I don't care. Go to therapy and go to therapy now because you have things that are going on with you internally that could potentially impact your relationship, no matter what. Even people who lived in what they call a perfect setting, in a 2-parent household, on a cul-de-sac, in the perfect school district, middle class your whole life, you can still
go to therapy.
Go to the therapy.
I goes.
Look, it's good
Raise
for
to
you.
hand.
The
Yes.
Lord made therapists.
For
Wise
a
counsel
reason.
is in the Bible if
Yes.
you are a Christian.
That's true.
But you have to go and you have to deal with those things. My dad and I have a great relationship. My father has always been present. We have not always had a good relationship, though. And even with him always having been present, there are still some things that I struggle with in romantic relationships that I can absolutely tie back to my relationship with my father. Mm-hmm. Deal with them. And so people always, you ain't had your daddy in your life and that's why you are the way you are. For some people, that it does impact you. Sometimes having your daddy in your life is what messed you up.
Yeah.
Deal with
I read that online today. Somebody said, y'all around here crying about not having your daddy, and I have a conversation with you and I found out all this stuff about your daddy, and I'm like, why'd you want him there? Why'd you want... Well, and y'all again, because y'all know I'm always listening to her. She said, who said that having that missing parent in your life was going to make your life even better? Who told you that? You have no way of knowing how it was going to turn out. But we have these made up scenarios in our mind that we want to stick to. And so for that reason, we'll be right back with the resolution. We are now introducing a new segment to the podcast. This is called Living Single. We want you guys to send in any of your relationship questions, if you need advice, or if you just want to give feedback on the show on a topic that we've discussed. Feel free to DM them on Instagram to Shanna Montana, or you can inbox me on Facebook, Living Single, and we'll definitely be touching on these topics on each episode going forward. And now this brings us to the resolution segment. In this segment, we're just going to do a quick roundtable to discuss how we feel that we can solve the issue of toxic masculinity and how it affects relationships. So, Cassanora, you want to go first?
Sure. So with respect to relationships, I think the primary thing is making your expectations known. What I will say is don't come to the first date with a list of this is what I expect in a relationship.
Don't take your list from the list episode on the first date.
Don't take your list to the first episode, or at least not your expectations of like what I want from a man in a relationship or what I want from a woman in a relationship to the very first day. At least not the whole thing.
Yeah.
But make those expectations known.
Yeah.
Because I've always said like there are people who expect for both in a heterosexual relationship for the man to work and the woman to work, but the woman to also come home and cook the meals and clean the house. You ain't finna work me to death, playboy, and I'm gonna let you know that pretty early on.
Yeah.
So make your expectations known. Receive the other person's expectations, and if they're not a good fit, that's not a relationship that you need to enter into. So you need to do so kind of advisedly. With respect to men just kind of holding each other accountable, you know your homeboy, call him out on his toxic stuff. Like, you don't have to... Accepting other people's lifestyle is a very interesting concept. But you don't have to allow your friend to be homophobic in his speech or hateful in his speech. How you feel about this particular gay man across the room should not matter to you, sir. And you don't need to make comments about him. So call your, like, boy, that ain't even what we doing. We here having a good time. We ain't even think about buddy over there. You need to chill and have you a drink and don't talk like that about folks. So call your homeboys out, men, in relationships, and I'm speaking from heterosexual relationships because those are the kind of relationships that I am in. Make your expectations known.
I like it. I love it. Kyle, what do you think? What shuts this down?
I agree with all that she said. One other thing that I would have to add is not only just voice your expectations, but hold that person accountable. If you voice that expectation, they're still not changing that behavior, be done with it or don't bring it up no more. Because at that point, it's irrelevant. But then also women or men that are raising young men, make sure not to instill that same toxic behavior into your children.
Right.
That's the only way we'll be able to change this quote-unquote generational curse or change this toxic behavior is to show them something different, show them something better.
Absolutely. Somebody got to break the cycle, and it's up to us to do it.
I'm breaking all chains.
Yeah, all chain go. What do you think, Krystal? What do you think is the cure?
Well, you know, my situation is a little different. I met my husband on the first date. I was telling him what I was, wouldn't, what he would like.
You broke all the rules.
I had the whole list because I walked in pissed. I was in a whole woman mood, and he was divorced, 2 kids, and he was like he didn't want to get married. You know, he didn't want no more kids. Pretty much, he just wanted a fuck buddy.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we're not doing that. I'm too old for that. I got too much potential. So I laid myself out and my expectations out. So it worked out on my behalf. That's my story. Everybody may not be in that way. Yeah. But I definitely agree with, you know, making sure that we're teaching and growing towards the vision of, you know, just a culture and a people of what we, the expectations of what we should be. You know, the love that grandpa and grandmama had, you know, that break or ride or die type love. And also, you know, giving you, No? What's the name?
We got some faces over here. What?
So I wrote a blog post about this, and it was called "Big Mama Was Miserable."
What? So tell us about it.
Not all the time. I think some people's grandparents, I would imagine your grandparents had beautiful relationships.
No, and look.
Okay.
Wait,
sis, wait.
The ideal couple marriage, I think, stemmed from very mature men. You know, men that love their woman, women that held their husband down, their house down, and it grew from there. After the generation of, you know, daddy, you know, the Rolling Stone, and, you know, grandmama may not have been happy, and a side chick, like, that ain't the type of vision I'm talking about. When I talk about the true culture, you know, where we as a culture stood together, we raised together, we ate together as a family, you know, so...
The other side, but
the
you
other
said
side,
you said what is holding down.
So I'm like, why am I like? I mean, it's only so much I'm finna hold. You got to hold.
Right. Look, my hands are full.
Emotional muling.
No, don't nitpick like all of that. Back in the day, the man worked. You know, the wife did her part. Whatever that looks like for the household. Right now, my husband works 2 jobs, and I hold everything down. I take care of the baby. I take care of the house, but I still work a full-time job. So whatever that looks like for you, your situation, your relationship is the key. You don't have to, you know, tit for tat of what, you know, me and, you know, they the rock, you shut up and you make my meal. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying you gotta work for what works.
And sometimes the traditional ideals do work.
So I do think whatever works for your relationship and your household is what works for your relationship and what for your household. Do not idealize anybody else's relationship, because I can speak for some of my grandparents. One of my great grandfathers, I don't know what his real name was, because he had 2 names in 2 different families. And he would hop a train and he would go be with one family and he would come back and be with another, and he was extremely abusive. But for a lot of women, especially decades ago, and we talking 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s even, marriage was financial stability. Exactly. And so they stayed in their place and they kept the home, and I'm using air quotes because this man is taking care of me, and he's taking care of my children. And so if I give too much resistance, then I'm going to be out of a home. Like my grandmother told me about times where her mom would stand up to her father because he was abusing them. And they were put out of the house until you learn how to respect me, and then you can come back in. So don't idealize, unless these your grandparents and you know what their relationship was like. And for some people, it was really beautiful. I've got a friend who talks about her grandparents' relationship, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Not everybody. For a lot of women in older times, marriage was financial stability. Particularly for black women, marriage was financial stability. And we endured because we had to. And the reason why some men maybe don't like independent women, some men, and these are men that with a little bit more prehistoric thinking, is because we have options now. We know it. Right. And we're not putting up with your bullshit. And so you don't like the independence because you cannot treat us the way people from centuries ago, or decades ago rather, have treated us. Absolutely. But whatever worked for you is what worked for you, and that's what I want you to have. But don't base it off of what you thought Big Mama and Granddaddy had. I think
some traditions or some traditional relationships were there and they were good.
Y'all picking it there. Picking and choosing.
I don't think so. It's just we idealize that, but we don't really know.
But that's your perception. Just like y'all said, some people can grow up in a loving home with their mother and still be messed up. And it can be vice versa. That can be the same for grandparents. So when I said that, I didn't mean it in a sense to say, hey, this is the tradition that everybody needs to model after us. Because I said, hey, look, my situation was my situation. Yeah. It might not work for everybody, you know, the same pattern of the way that it worked for me. Yeah. But you can look at the Obamas again. The Obamas were 2 successful, you know, black people that fell in love and did it the traditional way. You know, they helped each other, they loved each other, they, you know, grew with each other, and they still together. They got a beautiful, you know, family. And I'm sure.
So you speak it to just the tradition, the family of tradition.
That's the ideal tradition. And Michelle didn't do no more than Obama. Like, they both carry their weight. But if you look at their ancestors and their grandparents, they came from broken homes. So they didn't have like the big mama, big papa, you know, scenario, but that's like the traditional, you know, model. That's who we, you know, should in a sense model after.
I just think we just need to be careful, because now we're learning. It's like this is like new information. These are stories that are just now being shared, that a lot of those relationships, that ain't no relationship goals. Ain't no such thing. You should be your own relationship goals. But I think it's just a lot of those relationships that we idealized and even idolized were toxic. Yeah. And you know, we do have a tendency to look to maybe grandparents or great grandparents without knowing all the intricacies, because what we see is 2 people who seem to have endured, but we don't know when that door was closed and we weren't even thought of. We don't know how Big Daddy was treating Big Mama.
Yeah, but I think also,
but so I mean, it's just, I mean,
So
so it's just
longevity
like,
doesn't mean success.
It doesn't mean
but
success.
Actually, the way I look at
it's
it,
being careful,
being mindful.
With what you would call relationship goals.
But even if you look at it like this, if you're looking at it for the context of, like, my grandparents were married, I look at it, and I know they didn't have a perfect relationship, so in relating to what Krystal said, I look at it like just the family structure. Like, I do like that they were married and had their kids, and then we were all under the same household. And I know they had some crazy stuff going on. So I'm not looking at them to say that they are the perfect example of what to go with, but I'm looking at them to say, I do like that family structure. I do like that we did sit at the dinner table and ate together because of that tradition. I do like how it was traditional that my grandmother worked as well, but my grandfather did, and like he kind of brought his check home to my grandmother. Mm-hmm. She kind of ran the show at times. Mm-hmm. So I think so I picked up on certain things. I ain't
you gonna pick
so it's like the overall picture I saw, and certain things I picked up on, and certain things from being in the home with grandparents, I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. I'm like, but I'm gonna do that, you know. So it was like I had that luxury, but some people, I think maybe you weren't raised by grandparents, you kind of saw on the outside looking in, and for me, it's just different for me to see that structure firsthand and want just if nothing else, I want the framework of the house. I want the framework of a husband and a wife, and we start our family. But like you said, we're gonna create our own traditions inside this house. We're gonna decorate it how we want.
There's a difference between challenges and toxic.
Yeah.
Every relationship has challenges. I hate for people to get together and then you as an individual are going to have challenges, and you get with this other individual who's had challenges, and y'all come together and it's supposed to be perfection. I don't really know how that works.
It don't. And I'm saying,
I don't know how super cereal equal pie.
What you just said is so important, because that's something I'm learning right now, because in the past, I've dealt with men sometimes that never challenged me. And so now when I deal with men, and not in a negative way, but when I deal with a man and say, even if he correct me, I'm like, why you was so direct? Like, why'd you say that? And it's like, did you want to be wrong? Did you not want to be corrected? And it's like, I needed to be corrected, but I'm not used to it. And I think that takes away from that perfection of a relationship, this idea that I have in my mind, even though that's not people that I'm dealing with in a relationship. But what you said is so important. We have this idea of the relationship goal, or we have this idea of perfection of what it's supposed to look like, and then it doesn't, and we can't deal to some extent. Mm-hmm. Yes. So what do you think, Liz? What's the problem solver to all of this?
I think, it's just from my perspective, only because I'm thinking like research, and then I'm also thinking about the longevity and the health of men, particularly from my perspective, black men. It's just, there needs to be one, you need to call the kettle black. If it's black, it's black. And we need to, one, educate people as to what this is. Mm-hmm. Because like Cassie said, you're not going to not everything is toxic masculinity.
Right.
Sometimes you just an ass.
Yeah. And I think that's important to know.
And so it's just like, you need to know, be informed about what you're saying, because particularly in thinking about black men, how some of these behaviors are to their detriment. Yeah. They're following, they're basically enacting are y'all familiar with John Henry?
Sir John Henry, where he was like beating the side of, he was racing a machine.
He was racing a machine. He beat the machine, but he died. And
was this real life?
No, this is a fake.
Oh, okay.
But it's just, you, even in taking on quote unquote healthy components of masculinity, we need to understand that men need their space. Okay. And allow them the opportunity to learn and have emotions. If a man needs to cry, let the man cry. Even little boys, don't stunt people's emotional capability, literacy, anything. Don't do that. But I think it's just, allow them to be and become into the fullness of themselves. Yeah. So in being in the fullness of themselves, they can better operate and work with us and be in relationships with us. And then, if you want to be in a relationship, you want the relationship to be long. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't want your partner, somebody's gonna die, but you want you and your partner to have a good.
She went to death.
No, it's true though. When you think about life expectancy, it's
While we're here on this earth, you want us to be a good, long,
you
healthy,
want it
and
to
beautiful
have
life.
a good, beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're in these committed relationships, and if you so choose to stay with individuals who are enacting some of these things, support them in that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes supporting them in that, sometimes it gets a little ugly.
Yeah.
But give them that space to work through that. And then as it changes individually, then it will address the levels.
I like
that we
it.
talked about earlier.
I like it. And I think that ultimately, I just have to add what you were saying. I agree with what everybody said, but I think it's really important that men have to know and little boys have to know that you don't have to suppress your emotions. You don't have to maintain an appearance like you're so hard or so tough. You don't have to be violent to prove that you're a man. You don't even have to play football to prove that you're a man. You know, I think that sports sometimes just get attached to kids or whoever. And that, you know, you can learn to do life differently. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it comes down to. So I hope that on this episode, you all were able to learn something new about toxic, hard word to say, even harder word to talk about. Look,
Come on.
Toxic masculinity. It is my hope that you all have been able to learn some things about it today. I know I learned a lot. Learned some things about just, masculine nature and all that comes along with it. You know, at the beginning of the conversation, we talked about a lot of things that I had no idea, things that I was uneducated on, but I know that it will be able to help us all as we move forward in our relationships to make sure that we're able to maintain healthy relationships. So that said, let's give our guests a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause. As I always say, your opinions are valued. They are appreciated. And I thank you all for joining us. And we'll be right back with the Montana Minute. For today's Montana Minute, I just want to leave you with this. The first thing, if you know men that handle the world in this way where toxic masculinity is ever present, call them out for it, but in a healthy way. And see if there's anything that you can do to support them in the journey if they will allow it. The next thing, pass this episode along to any brothers or male counterparts that you think may need to hear it. And the third thing, men have to start holding one another accountable when they behave in this way. It's probably the best way for this to get the attention that it needs. And don't teach boys that they should not express their emotions because they become grown men who don't know how to express their emotions. And that is an epidemic that we need to stop today. So I always leave you with the question, to be single or not to be. The choice is yours. Signing off, Shanna Montana.